What is up, my friends? You are very welcome along to Tuesday night's late night agenda. And just a reminder, this is our last live stream for a week. So we'll see you guys back, well, a little bit over a week actually. We'll see you guys back on Thursday, the 27th. So yeah, just so you know, between now and then, there'll be a few bits gone up on the Clips channel, but this is our last live stream, and well, fair to say we've got plenty to talk about. We're going to be discussing the situation with Virgil van Dijk. We're going to be talking about Real Madrid and their pursuit of Dean Huijsen. We're going to be asking, do we really believe this £250 million war chest that's been mentioned in the media? And then we're going to try and figure out how on earth we can do everything we need to do and fall within that budget. So we'll figure it all out tonight, ladies and gents. As always, I do appreciate you guys being here with us. And whilst we're waiting for the chat to fill up a little bit, just got to have a quick word from our sponsor, but then we'll get straight into it. It's just you and me for 90 minutes of Liverpool fan talk. So, quick word from our sponsor. I'll see you in 83 seconds. This video is sponsored by Surfshark, the best VPN on the market. Surfshark is an app or browser extension that allows you to change your location to access websites in other countries and keep you safe and secure from hackers. Using Surfshark, we here in Ireland can access other countries' Netflix libraries or other streaming platforms like DAZN in Spain for all those important Premier League games. Surfshark keeps you safe and private by protecting everything you do online. Everything. When your device connects to the internet, all that information is, in a way, blurred out. Surfshark is particularly useful for keeping you safe from being hacked if you use public Wi-Fi. Let's say you're in a cafe, you're at college, you're out and about, they've got you covered. Surfshark allows you to use one subscription on unlimited devices, meaning you can share your account with friends or family or that neighbour who's a little bit cheap. On top of all of this, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee. You can also upgrade to Surfshark One, which includes the VPN, an alert system for breaches related to your data, such as emails and credit cards, and an antivirus software for your desktop. Our sign-up offer gives you Surfshark VPN for a little over €2 a month. Simply scan the QR code on screen right now or use the link in the description. Right, folks, we are back, and as promised, we're going to get straight into the news. Thank you again to our sponsor, Surfshark, and thank you to you guys for your patience. Right, so a couple of things today. Firstly, I wanted to have a conversation around the latest with Virgil van Dijk. You remember last night we did a news video about a breaking story from Anfield Watch that was talking about an offer that has come in for Virgil van Dijk that would see him make €40 million a season before tax. Well, it seems like there's a bit of a difference of agreement on whether this offer exists or not. So Julien Laurent, who you may be familiar with from his work on TNT Sport, or BT as it used to be, a very, very credible French journalist and somebody that certainly has his finger on the pulse of all things Paris Saint-Germain. Well, he said there is nothing between Virgil van Dijk and Paris Saint-Germain. No talks, no negotiation, no €100 million offer, nothing. Virgil had a chat with Luis Campos and Nasser Al-Khelaifi after the Champions League second leg, and it wasn't about his future, it was about the two games that they played. So that's relieving for me, because if the numbers we mentioned last night in the video were true, there's no way Liverpool could have gotten anywhere near the type of numbers mentioned there. We're talking about a salary of about 650 grand a week, something like that. It was nuts. So interesting, and I'm relieved, to be honest with you, because you know, there's no way Liverpool would have been getting near that type of offer. And we still don't know what's happening with our captain. We do know that there's interest in loads of centre-backs from Liverpool. We're going to be talking about Dean Huijsen. We're going to be speaking about the kid from Wolfsburg. We're going to be looking at Schlotterbeck from Dortmund. And we're going to try and figure out between us whether these are realistic and will they fall within the budget, or are they going to be replacements for Virgil? Because the word replacement has been one that's been used quite a lot over the last few days, and I don't like seeing it. It makes me nervous. Sean, I'm good, thank you, bro. I'm good. DELAP, we'll get to DELAP. Don't worry, Hayden. We'll get to talking about DELAP because there's been links with DELAP today as well. But look, when we spoke about DELAP the other night, I think I'm right in saying the general consensus from the community was that DELAP would be great if he was another backup. So you wouldn't want DELAP, based off the poll that we conducted, being the number one striker. You'd want somebody like an Isak and then DELAP as a backup. I think I'm right in saying that. At least that's what the results of the poll showed up the other night. I think you mentioned Bastoni in the earlier video. I did, and I will give you all of that information in a moment as well, because Bastoni has been a name that's been linked with moves to Liverpool. Now, for me, I wouldn't hold my breath on Bastoni, but he is a name that was mentioned. That came from Fakahe's, that link, that Xavi Simons, Julian Alvarez and Alessandro Bastoni were all linked. Now, I have to say I've not seen much around Bastoni myself outside of this one piece. I know Liverpool fans, many of us have been, well, looking to see if Bastoni would be an option, but I wouldn't certainly stand over that and say it's the most credible of links, not for me personally. Same with Xavi Simons. I just don't see a world where that would be the right move for Liverpool. I just don't. I don't think Xavi Simons is good enough, and the €80 million price tag that they're talking about is too much for a player that, well, according to reports, has some attitude issues. Did you see Frimpong greeting our lads at the Netherlands camp with a Scouser accent? Yep, I did, and I'd seen a couple of interviews with Frimpong as well. We do know that Frimpong has a €40 million clause. Whether that's inserted in his contract or a gentleman's agreement, I actually don't know. But there is talk that there's a €40 million release clause for Frimpong. But like I've always said, I'd be very surprised if that was the direction we went in, because, well, he's not really a right back in the sense of the way we utilise a right back. Honestly, I thought Gravenberch was a rubbish signing. How did that turn out? It turned out well, Kevin, and do you know what? I was the same. I questioned the signing of Gravenberch when he came in, and I was very wrong about that. But the Xavi Simons stuff, I've a bigger sample size of stuff to look through, and we went through a report the other day that suggested that he doesn't even turn up for some of the events at Leipzig, and he's annoyed some of his teammates, and that those around him are a bit of a pain in the backside. Now, the piece did say that he seemed like a good kid, all right, but again, €80 million, is he ready to come to Liverpool? €80 million? I don't know, honestly. It's a daunting prospect, this window coming up. Let's talk about, where do we want to go with this? Sorry, so many notes to go through. Let's talk about Bournemouth for a second, because they're one of the clubs credited now with an interest in Caoimhín Kelleher. So if Bournemouth are looking for Kelleher and we're looking for Kirkes, you would hope that maybe it would be an easy conversation. At least they'd pick up the phone anyway. And of the clubs that have been interested in Kelleher, I mean, if I'm him, I'd be seeing if Newcastle would be interested or something like that, because I think Kelleher, I think I could see him at Bournemouth, but could he aim a little bit higher? I don't know. They may have European football, so that could be a benefit. But Bournemouth, according to Ben Jacobs anyway, are interested in signing Caoimhín Kelleher. Now remember, we're probably not going to see his full value because he's only got 1 year to go on his Liverpool deal. Bournemouth would be a great move for Kelleher, said Nomad. I think the likes of a Newcastle may be a little bit better. But look, Bournemouth are certainly a club on the up and up. Iriola's done a very good job there since he's gone in. I thought Kepa wanted to stay at Bournemouth. Yeah, but he's crap. You know, I don't understand how anybody takes a punt on Kepa. I even watched the game against Spurs, and he basically cost Bournemouth points from giving away a stupid late penalty when there was no need to, for a foul on Son, if I remember correctly. So yeah, if I was Iriola or that Bournemouth team, I'd be looking to get rid of Kepa at the first opportunity, because I just don't rate him at all, to be honest with you. Especially considering he was, or is maybe still, the world's most expensive keeper. Right, where do we go? Let's talk about a player we missed out on for a minute, because it kind of gives you an idea of what we're up against. And I mentioned this in the video earlier on today. Fabrizio Romano said Dario Isugo is going to Chelsea for €22 million fixed fee, and he signs a contract until 2032 with an option to extend for another year. But what I found very interesting about this story was Romano saying that Liverpool were looking to get a deal done for the player. Liverpool had offered him about €50,000 per week and a 5-year contract, but Chelsea then came in and offered him €100,000 per week and a 6-year contract. And this is what we're going to be up against this summer. That's for a player who's €22 million. So what are we going to be looking at when we're up against clubs who are looking to sign the likes of Isak or even Shesko as an example? If we can't outmuscle Chelsea, who have lots of financial concerns, it just shows once again that we aren't willing to pay what other clubs are to attract talent. And that's what has me concerned. I've never heard of this guy, by the way. No idea of anything about him. But Chelsea straight in, doubled the wages we offered him, threw in an extra year on the table as well, and he's off to Chelsea. But honestly, I didn't hear anything about this guy. I know he's a Sporting player. That's it. No, nothing else after that. Never heard of Asugo. What position does he play? I've no idea. Probably defence. It would be my guess. But honestly, I've known nothing about him other than this post from Romano that said he signs at Chelsea till 2032 with an option of another year. And then, of course, they spoke about the fact that Liverpool didn't want to match the offer. I don't know what this means. I don't know what an Erasmus offer is, mate. Sorry for my stupidity, but congratulations. Sorry, Bren, I've no idea what that means, mate. Is Erasmus, I don't know, what's that, a college offer or something? No idea, buddy, sorry. It's gone a bit over my head. Thought Kepa wanted to stay, we filmed that one. So look, reminder, this is our last live stream for 8 nights. So if you're in the background, you want to have something to say tonight, you want to talk about a certain subject, you know what to do. Let us know in the comments. He's a midfielder. There you go. See, that's how little I knew about him. But yeah, a midfielder. So yeah, we lost out on him, but meh, it is what it is. Nick said, have you seen the links to Villarreal left back Cardona? No, I haven't. Not saying they're not out there, but genuinely I haven't seen them, Nick. Today's been a bit of a crazy day behind the scenes. We had 2 meetings today. One of them about a platform that wants us to come across, and another one about a possible Premier League title lift day work, job, experience in Liverpool, whatever. Yeah, so much, man. It's been such a busy day. I'm playing catch up. It was Celtic, Philip. Frimpong was at Celtic, mate, previously. Have a great holiday with the family. Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate you, my man. Certainly looking forward to it. We're all packed up and ready to go. I am Craig Curious in a good way. Where are you going on holiday this time? Just over to Spain, mate. Just over to Spain for a week. Ash said, don't know if you mentioned this yesterday, breaking, Nunez and Diaz can both leave. Yes, so it seems as if Darwin, Jota and Diaz are all available if the right offer comes in this summer. I feel pretty confident in saying that. But look, the fear is going to be the same fear we speak about until we know what's going on with the players. We're leaving ourselves a lot to do. And if we do lose 2 or 3 of the lads whose contracts are up, it's a lot of work for the lads to do to figure this out. So let's talk about this war chest, because I've an idea that I'm going to run with through the summer. I kind of mentioned it earlier on, but we're going to keep a net spendometer for the summer. I know, it sounds a little bit extreme, but hear me out. I want to see at the end of this summer's transfer window what the net spend really has been and how much money Liverpool are investing in to playing staff. So we're going to keep a tab running all the way through the transfer window, and we're going to add and subtract to it as and when necessary and try to give a rough idea of how much money the club spend net, i.e. after recouping money this summer. And then we'll see if there's been a war chest or not by the end of it. And if there isn't, we'll talk about that. And if there is, we'll celebrate that. So yes, keep an eye out for that one this summer. Because, you know, I'm sick of the bullshit. I'm sure you guys are as well. So if you want to talk £250 million war chests, well then let's see. Let's see if they put their money where their mouth is. Craig, this summer transfer window sounds like a total rebuild. It is to some extent. It seems like a big rebuild of the forward line anyway. Look, midfield, that rebuild was done the season before this and done very well. We do need to add another body in there, in my opinion. And then, of course, you got to talk about the likes of Bajcetic, McConnell and younger players coming through. Neone, of course, another one. The forward line is the interesting one, though, because it seems like everybody at this moment in time and their futures at Liverpool in the forward line is up in the air. And unfortunately, I do include Mohamed Salah in that conversation for the moment because, of course, we don't know what's going on with his contract. But yeah, it could be a big rebuild of the attack and a bit of a rebuild of the defence, depending on how many we lose. So if Virgil stays, I would say we still need one more centre-back minimum, a left-back, and then, of course, if Trent's gone, well, we're going to have to sort out another right-back. We mentioned Wesley in last night's late video from Flamingo. I don't know much about him, but 21 years of age and somebody who we've been linked to previously as well. So, of course, we'll keep an eye on that one as well. Stevie Boy said, Mo, Verge, Trent, Canade, who stays? The two centre-backs will be my guess, Stevie Boy. Yeah, that'll be my guess. And it would be a guess because I really don't know what to expect anymore. I never once had any fear that Virgil was going to leave until the last week. And now I'm starting to get nervy. Because like I mentioned last night, I wasn't at all surprised that as soon as we had one little brief period where maybe Mo isn't as great as he's been all season, that you see so much talk now about, oh, well, you see he's falling off now, he's tired, catching up with him. So I just get the feeling Edwards would happily move all three on. Well, Trent he might not have a choice with, but the Virgil one's the one that scares me the most, Stevie Boy, because, you can make an argument, right or wrongly, about Mohamed Salah, but I just, when you've got players like Houlden interviewed this week for his first call-up for the Spanish team, and he's been asked who the best centre-back is, or who he modelled his game on, and he said Van Dijk's the best in the world at the moment. So Van Dijk's the best in the world at the moment, and he's our captain, and yet we're still struggling to get this deal done. And that's where I worry, because if we're struggling, are we really bothering? And if we're not bothering, how do you explain that to the fan base? So it's going to be interesting to see if anything happens over this international break, if we do get any news or breakthroughs, because we're getting closer and closer now to the end of the season. Nick said, got slated for calling London derbies crap. Fans blame the quality of games on player availability. Derbies are derbies no matter who's playing. I mean, the North London derby is always an interesting one for me. I certainly always find those pretty engaging affairs. But look, derbies are derbies. You want local bragging rights. Sometimes they're not the best quality of games, but if you win, you win, and that's all that matters. So rightly, Lee said £250 million war chest. Sorry for being cynical, but not in a million years. Absolutely fine, Lee. I don't think any of us didn't raise an eyebrow when this came up. But I'm going to ask for the first question tonight. Do you think there will be? So 1 second. So, I'm going to ask the question, Lee, simply, do you think we will have a £250 million war chest this summer? Now, for me, folks, when I hear £250 million, that's what we have to spend on top of players that we sell. That's the way I read the situation. So if we end up this summer with a net spend of 80 million quid and we're still scratching our heads, well, we'll know very much once again these figures have been blown out of all proportion. But let's see if people believe that this money will be available or not. So I've asked the question. I'll leave it up to you guys to answer. Do I think we're going to spend £250 million net this summer? No, I don't. But let's wait and see. I'm absolutely open to being pleasantly surprised on this one and being wrong and proved wrong, and I won't complain one bit. This is a kind of a win-win for me as a Liverpool fan. Either the money gets spent and we're all happy, or it doesn't get spent and the pressure ratchets up on the owners because they're not doing their job. So this to me is a massive, massive summer. There's no hiding place for FSG now. You've put the contract situations the way they are. You've allowed some other players to leave the club. Now it's on you to do the rebuild properly. The world's watching. The fans are watching. Let's see. And do you know what? It sounds alien to us, right? We're all thinking, that's mad, that couldn't be possible. Well, it should be possible, because we spent nothing net in the last two windows. Manchester City dropped 170 million in the winter, and will do more business again in the summer. So, let's see. Let's see. I mean, I don't believe it, but I'm open to being wrong. Marcus Cavern, welcome back to Anfield Agenda FC, my man. Apparently Wolves want Jota, could be swapped for that midfielder. I'd seen that, Conrad, but I think the problem that I can see with that is that Jota wants a higher level of football, European football. So Newcastle were another club that were mentioned with Diogo Jota, and look, Newcastle already have qualified for Europe through the League Cup. They may get Champions League football. So I think that would be a more palatable option for him. But I have seen the link you're speaking about Wolves being interested in him. And like you've said, maybe João Gomez could be a make weight or a part exchange in that deal. Where's the money, John? Said Project Lunar. Where's the money? We're in early negotiations, by the way, about doing some really fun stuff for Premier League title day in Liverpool. We're speaking with a company at the minute. It's not boxed off yet, so I can't announce anything. But you may see Anfield Agenda over in Liverpool for a Premier League title winning day, and then back over again on the Wednesday. So keep with us, and as soon as we get more news on this, we'll let you know. We had our first call today with one of the companies that are staging one of these big events, and so far so good. The Caicedo bid money is still there, remember. Well, we did spend some of that, in all fairness, Eli. We did spend money on Endo and Gravenberch after the Caicedo incident. Key or Kai, said Craig, hope you're well, mate. All good, my man, all good. Just just winding down, looking forward to a week's break, because mentally, God, I need it. Right, some more news to go through then. Did you see what Ronald Koeman said about Virgil van Dijk's future when he was asked? He said, whether he signs with Liverpool or another big club, that's all good for me. We'll see what happens. What I understand from Virgil is that he's still looking for the level he's at now. That breaks my heart to hear that. You know, the fact that we have to have this conversation about whether Virgil lifts a Premier League title and then disappears or not is a joke to me. You know, does anybody else feel that way? Like, imagine Virg winning the Premier League, openly being spoken about as the best defender in the league and maybe in Europe, and then our club going, cheers for that, Virg, off you pop. It's sickening to even think about. Hopefully you can get some interactions with players. No, it wouldn't be near the first team or anything like that. These would be different events that are put on by a company that does this stuff year in, year out. There'll be former players involved in it, DJs, bands, all that kind of stuff. And if it goes to plan, I'll be the host of the evening. So look, let's wait and see what happens. But it was a really interesting call today, and exciting stuff if it happens. If it doesn't happen, hey, it doesn't happen. It's disrespectful more than anything, said Nomad. Hey Craig, seen an interview with Canade saying VVD was the best player he'd played with and that one day he hoped to be as good. So I think if VVD goes, so does Ibu. Look, I wouldn't blame some of the players for feeling really annoyed if the club let Virgil go. You know, he's the leader and the captain, and he wants to stay. It's what makes this whole situation very difficult for many of us to swallow, because it should be straightforward. Give him a deal. He wants to be here. Keep him. And I'm almost starting to get to the point now where I'm expecting Salah to go. I'm not saying I want that. I don't. But that's kind of where my head's at now. I've prepared myself mentally for Trent going. I'm still preparing for Mo to go. But yeah, you know, I don't know what everybody else feels, but it's just not looking great, is it, at the minute on that front? Spencer Price said, yeah, I feel that way. Virgil must stay. If you ever see the training videos, VVD is almost always talking with Arna. VVD brings a lot to this team. Letting him go would be devastating, said Hex. It would be more than devastating, mate. It would be an absolute piss take, to be honest with you, from a fan's perspective. It just doesn't make much sense. A player that wants to be here, that's still defending really well. Again, I just wonder, and I'm thinking this out loud, have we got a situation where maybe Hughes wants to insert more control over the club with Edwards. I don't know. You know, maybe they want to move out some of the old guard. Maybe they want a complete refresh, new voices, new leadership, new younger players for a new era. I don't know. It's a risky strategy if it happens, but I don't know. It's so difficult to be in any way optimistic about a proper refresh when we know how cheap these owners have been over the years. It feels like any rebuild or refresh will be done on the cheap. Do I think it borders ageism? I mean, no. I mean, look, when we talk about ageism, we're usually talking about far higher ages in industries where people aren't kept on. The thing that it comes down to for me, Nolly Pop, is if we're to believe that the club are led by data and analytics, well, the data and the analytics are showing that Virgil's still defending and playing at a really, really, really high level. So it should be a no-brainer in that regard. We also know that the manager wants him to stay because he came out and said so last week. We know that Virgil wants to stay because he's come out and said so many times. And we've been led to believe that the club want to negotiate to get it done. So it feels like, if they're being honest, this should be straightforward. Virgil wants to stay, the manager wants him to stay, the fans want him to stay, the dressing room wants him to stay, and apparently the club want him to stay. So how could we not get it done? Unless somebody's telling porkies again. Mohammed said, what do you think is a good replacement in case Salah leaves? I mean, look, Rodrigo would be great. But what do I think is more likely? Mbeumo, probably. You know, that would be my type of guess. That they look at somebody like Brian Mbeumo and think, okay, well, let's bring him in. It's so difficult. Like, I mean, for me, this individuals aren't really as important as knowing what the fully refreshed front line looks like. Because maybe there's a player who might not score a shit ton of goals, but may be an invaluable asset to the rest of the players that may allow the system to work. So what I want them to do is build a front three like they did with Mane, Firmino and Salah, where they all had their unique roles to play. Bobby didn't necessarily be as prolific as Mane and Salah was on occasion, but his hard work and sacrifice and cleverness of movement allowed our attack to bond together. He knew how to drop deep if he needed to, create space for others. So it has to be a unit, not three individuals. So I'm willing to maybe sacrifice a sexy name somewhere if it is part of an orchestrated plan to reshape the attack. Stevie Boy said, has Edwards come back to help FSG purchase another football club? Well, that was what we were led to believe, right? Hasn't happened yet. I don't know why. I don't know if they feel the right club isn't on the market yet. I don't know if they feel that they need Edwards' area of expertise used in other departments of the club for a minute. I do know the club today announced the head of communications is leaving and the vice president of communications is being promoted up. So a few changes behind the scenes there as well. So let's say we had ended up with a front three something next season like Mbeumo, Isak, Gakpo, and then you had Liam DELAP as a backup option. I wouldn't say no to that with Jayden Danns either. But we are going to need to have 6 attacking options. One of them can be a young option, but you're going to have 5 good rotational players in there. And I wonder will we get a guaranteed starter every game like Mohamed Salah, or whether we'll have a group that could rotate around and nobody's really nailed into that starting 11. It's so difficult to predict, but the midfield rebuild, I feel, went very well. I've certainly got not many complaints about that, other than I still think we're a body short in there. Tony, thank you, my man. Appreciate you. Adam said, curious if anyone is scared as me that we lose the big 3. Others will go as well, and then we won't win anything for years to come. Another rebuild in order, being harder to sell a project to incoming players. Absolutely. Adam. Absolutely. Like, I will say this openly now and at any other stage. If we lose Virgil, Mo and Trent, in my mind, no matter what we do, there's no way we're challenging for the title next season. That's my thought process. I'm not saying they won't get the rebuild right. I'm not saying we won't still be there or thereabouts next year. But I very, very, very firmly believe that if you lose Virgil van Dijk, there goes the chance to win the Prem again next year. That's just my thought process. You may be able to get by without Trent, depending on what we do with Mo. Maybe you can share the goals around. I just don't see losing Virgil as a way, anyway, that we're going to find somebody who's going to allow us to challenge next year. And if we're not challenging for the Premier League next year and looking to really defend our title, that in itself is a piss take, because it's just a rinse and repeat of the past where we won a title and then we were nowhere. So a lot to happen this summer. And I just feel in my own mind, rightly or wrongly, that Virgil has to be part of any rebuild for the moment, because it's too much without him. That's just my take on it, though. Adam, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. Appreciate you. You're dreaming, Craig. About what? You're going to need to give me more information than that, Monkstown Glass. I mean, I'm trying to be balanced here, by the way. You know, I'm trying to give an upbeat look at this. Inside, of course, I'm shitting myself at the idea of what's going to happen this summer. You know? Would I be at all surprised to see the lads move on and players brought in that 2 or 3 of them we think okay and 2 or 3 of them are scratching our heads and them cheaping out on it? Yeah, absolutely. But it's their tenure and jobs that are on the line at this point, because fans aren't going to accept a cheap and cheerful refresh. It's time that Liverpool fans started to stand up, though. Let me say this clearly. Stop accepting scraps. Stop accepting the bullshit. Stop accepting the nonsense that gets pushed out by friendly sources at the club. Start demanding what we should be getting, which is to be treated like a club who are one of the biggest 5 in the world. Don't be embarrassed to demand top players, because you're being asked to pay top dollar for your prices, to go to the games, to watch on Sky, to buy your shirts, to support the club, to become members. You're all being asked to pay top dollar for it. And unless we see the benefit of all of that and the increased hospitality offerings and all at Anfield, what's the point? Because I'm fed up as a fan of hearing about all the great commercial stuff that FSG have done and all the new partnerships they've brought into the club and all the extra revenue streams, and then asking where the fuck is that on the pitch? And then somehow being hit with, well, the wage bill's going up. How? How is the wage bill going up when you're moving on big earners? How? There's a lot of stuff that we need to start questioning more. And Liverpool fans need to understand that it's okay to not support every single thing a club does. They want you to support everything that they do, but it's okay to question it. Nolly Pop said, I agree, we can function and replace all but VVD. Tony said, evening Craig, I think the club will announce the contract renewals once we win the league, maybe. I mean, to be fair, Tony, I've been through so many of these type of situations throughout the year. I think it'll be done before the summer transfer window closes. I think it'll be done before Christmas. I think it'll be done at Christmas. I think it'll be done for New Year. I think it'll be done before the January window shuts. And all of them have been false dawns, Tony. I feel, to be honest with you, mate, that the club don't really want to keep the 3 lads. Maybe Trent, but I think that's out of their hands. Just my gauge on it, because if it was you or me, Tony, and it was an employee of ours, and you knew other top clubs or other top businesses were sniffing around, and you had a chance to keep this employee or your fucking manager or whatever it was in your business, you'd do it, as would I, because you'd be an idiot not to. So I don't understand why we'd weaken our own negotiating position by allowing this to drag out and open the door for others to come in if we ever had an intent to keep them. You know, in any negotiation, leverage is important. And if you have 3 or 4 offers from clubs that are willing to pay you a load of dough that our club isn't, the club would surely want to avoid that situation if they really wanted to keep somebody. And that's my thought process on this, rightly or wrongly. James Pearce questioning players being fatigued. 2 months ago he was saying no need to bring in players. Look, this is the type of nonsense, Rory, that does my head in. Carragher was at it as well. FSG are great owners. Liverpool don't need to do X or Y. Then we lose a cup final and all of a sudden the players are fatigued and we need a refresh. You know, there's too many journalists that cover our club that don't do you, the reader, a proper service. And unfortunately, James Pearce is one of them. And he's a lovely fella. And I've a load of time for Pearcey. But he's just another club PR merchant. It's as simple as that. He just is. Him, the lads at the Echo, Lynch, they're all in the same mob. They all do what the club want them to do, in my opinion, or at least portray a positive outlook that the club want them to. And none of them do any actual journalism. That's it. And I guess, though, if you want the interviews with the players, if you want the exclusives and all this stuff after deals happen, well, I guess you got to be a good little boy. But I find it pitiful that that's an environment that has been allowed to develop in football, where there is no real journalism around our club. There are good journalists like Miguel Delaney and others and Henry Winter who do their own work but don't really cover individual clubs. But for everybody involved at covering Liverpool Football Club, you'll see one common denominator, and that will be not fucking one of them will criticise the club. Properly criticise the club. Not one. They'll all tell you, like that gobshite Dominic King who was on X cry arson at me last week saying, who stood up for the fans with Super League? Not you, asshole. Not you. Us. We were the ones that did it. Fans came together for the Super League. The furloughing of staff and all the other stuff only happened when Spirit of Shankly stood up. And then people got on board. So the revisionism from these clowns is hilarious. And they don't do their jobs well enough. And they don't like being called out for it. But you know what? I don't give a damn. Because they're not doing their job. And I would suggest if you were to survey 100,000 Liverpool fans and ask them, do they think that these people are actually asking probing questions and getting the answers the fans want, you're going to get the answer, not a hope. They ask the same rinse and repeat, boring, dull-arse questions every time that nobody gives a shite about the answer to, because that's all they can do. And it's just a sad state of affairs for football journalism that clubs are so powerful now that they have all these little beta boys who are happy to just toe the company line. And look, I can already hear them typing on their little angry journalistic keyboards right now, trying to call us all out and say I'm an arsehole and say I'm a bad person. I don't give a shite, because none of them are authentic and none of them are being sincere. And a lot of them don't even like each other, and that's the really funny part of it. So I'm going to do what they won't do. And I'm going to call them out in the process, because they think they're a protected species. They think that they're above the rest of us. But truth of the matter is, they're not. They're not. And the quality of journalism on some of these sites is shocking as well. So, I'm going to stick up for you, the fan. And I'm going to say what needs to be said. And I hope, and I've started to see a bit of a change, of course, from a lot of people now. And I hope people come with us on this, because we've every right to be questioning what the fuck is going on at the club. Dark Ruby said we need a striker to score 20 plus. Last one was Suarez. Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. I just really struggle to see a world where we get Isak. So much about it just makes me feel like top quality centre forwards are at a premium right now. There isn't as many of them in Europe as maybe there was in years gone by. The way clubs play have changed. The way teams set up have changed. So when you get somebody like an Isak, there's going to be a lot of clubs willing to spend money there. And Newcastle, if they get Champions League football, won't even really be in a position where they need to sell. So if the player's not angling for a move away, If he gets an improved deal, if he gets Champions League football, that's one more name probably out the window. And I read a piece today on Sky about Manchester United and their summer transfer window. And their names on their list are Gyökeres, Šeško, and I think there was one more name on there who it eludes me at the minute. Oh, Ekitike was the other one, yeah. So it was Victor Gyökeres, Hugo Ekitike, and Benjamin Sesko were three names of players that United were looking at. Now, if United, without two peas to rub together, can be looking at them, we should be all over some of these bigger players. And if we're to believe that these people have been working so hard behind the scenes, as they have supposedly been all season, because they haven't been extending deals, then we should see this all sorted out quickly. And if there is an extra transfer window at the end of the season, which it looks like there is, well then let's see if we get any pre-transfer window transfers in. Right, Martin said out Diaz 70 million, Nunez 50 million, Kelleher 25, Chimikas 20, in Isak 130, Kirkes 40, Frimpong 35, Zubamendi 50. He's gone to Arsenal, mate. Yeah, he's gone to Arsenal. At least according to David Ornstein the other day, he said, now he didn't say it was 100% a done deal. I don't want to put words in Mr. Ornstein's mouth, but he did say, let me scroll back through my notes for you. Sorry, mate. Just bear with me 1 second. I'm going back through a few days worth of notes here. What do we think about Chiesa's future, by the way? Would we agree that Chiesa should be starting through the middle for the remainder of the season? Sorry, I'm still scrolling back trying to find this story from the other day. I don't seem to have it anymore. But yeah, David Ornstein posted something the other day to say it's moving along, his move to Arsenal, Zubamendi. So I think that's another one we can unfortunately put in the not going to happen pile. But you know what? Of the numbers you've mentioned there, Martin, I think you've put realistic valuations on most of the incoming and outgoing players. So fair play on that one. Sam Lewis, welcome to Anfield Agenda FC, Sam. Corbyn said 250 million, my arse, got more chance of winning the lotto. Well, we did ask what people think. Do you believe the 250 million war chest? And with 1,300 votes cast, well, just a couple of votes shy of 1,300 votes cast, 78% of people say no, there is no way that they're believing that Liverpool will spend 250 million net this summer. And net is the key word here for me, because that shows the investment they're putting in. Now look, you do want the club to get as much as possible for the players we're selling. So, you know, but let's see. Let's see if we do spend that much. We're going to keep the net spendometer running throughout the summer, and we'll keep tabs on how much roughly we've spent net by the end of it. Aaron Picard said FSG never wanted to keep VVD and Mo. Winning the Prem went against their cheap plan. No real ambition. So for the next poll, I want to talk about Chiesa. So 1 second. So the question I'm going to ask you is, should Chiesa play through the middle for the last 9 games? Because remember, the options here are Diogo Jota, who's looked way off it, Darwin Nunez, who is absolutely way off it, or shoehorning Diaz back into a central position. So I'm going to ask, should Chiesa play through the middle for the last 9 games? And I want to know what you guys think, yay or nay. I don't see what we have to lose, in all honesty. That's my biggest point. If you're looking at the numbers we mentioned the other day about 3 goals and 41 combined appearances for the likes of Darwin, Diaz, Jota, that's not good enough. So how could we do any worse by putting Chiesa through the middle there? Barry Ward said, "Hi Craig, that money will only get us 2 players. So many leaving. I can see why Klopp left." Yeah, look, £250 million isn't the huge war chest it was a few years ago when you see Chelsea dropping £1 billion over a few seasons. So I totally understand where you're coming from, Barry. Do you think Elliott will stay next season? I hope so. I think he'll fight to stay. So, and with that, I hope so. But again, his future is in question. Would you take De Jong if his wages were lowered to 300k? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Frankie De Jong's a wonderful footballer. He's getting on in age, of course. But if he was to come in and add to what we have in midfield, there's no way I'd be sitting here unhappy about it. You'd have to be concerned about some of the injuries he's had and whatnot. And as you've mentioned, it'd have to be a huge pay cut. But definitely, like if Zubamendi's really gone, then who are we going to look at for midfield? You've seen links to the young lad from PSG. That's not really going to happen, is it? So who else have we mentioned in midfield? There was another name we spoke about recently in midfield. One sec. Again, let me fly through my notes. Where was it? There was one more name we spoke about yesterday. Oh, Joe Gomez, sorry, from Wolves was another name. Dylan Bosman, welcome to Anfield Agenda FC and VI Jokers. Thank you, mate, for gifting a membership. Morton Friendrup. I've not seen his name, Bongzadi, linked for a while. Yeah, I've not seen it for a while, personally, but again, doesn't mean he wouldn't be on a list. But yeah, it was Joe Gomez was the player I was thinking about, the Wolves player. Spencer said, can we also talk about Slot? Yes, he'll be the 5th to win the Premier League in his debut season, but where were the January signings? So what we heard in January, Spencer, was that the club were holding their nerve until the summer. And look, we said at the time, it's a risky strategy. I guess it's up to each individual fan to decide whether they think that strategy pays off or not. You know, is a Premier League title enough to justify not spending in January? Could that extra bit of expenditure have helped us maybe push on further in the Champions League or to beat Newcastle? Hard to quantify that one. Hard to really say categorically yes or no one way or the other. But what we know as a fact is we didn't do the business and now we are limping over the line towards the Premier League title and we're out with 2 competitions in a week. So that's what we do know. It's up to you then to decide if you think that that risk was worthwhile. David, never have to apologise, my man. Never have to apologise for being busy and having a family life, my man. Always appreciate when you do come in, but you've nothing to ever come in and apologise to us for, sir. Appreciate you being in, though. If Slot doesn't get back this summer, I hope he walks and gets back to elsewhere. I swear to God, I'm not making up what I'm about to say. I swear to God, I read this on the Echo comment section, so it's not written by the Echo, but it's somebody in the comments. I'm genuinely can't believe I'm about to say this, but they said Arne Slot should be sacked. He's not good enough. We should be bringing in somebody like Iriola. That's where do you go with that? Like, do you know what I mean? A manager coming in and winning the league in his first season showing he's not good enough, and we should be getting Iriola. I don't know what to say at times, some of the stuff I read. And I know I have some out there takes on occasion, but that's different level. I know, sacked. Imagine, like, Jesus Christ, Arteta stealing and living at Arsenal still. 7 years, 6 years, 1 trophy. And we're talking about maybe sacking a manager who comes in and with no signings and wins a league title. That's the level of delusion that you see online these days, unfortunately. Arne is epic. Yeah, look, I'm unhappy about the way we set up for the final, and I'm happy about some of the tactical tweaks in the final, but that's a one-off occasion. I'm unhappy about some of the responses he gave after the final, saying that he doesn't think fatigue or a lack of fight was anything to do with it. I mean, I disagree strongly on some of those points. My dad still believes in Darwin and thinks he's a very good player. I don't know what to say to that, Bransfield, mate. Let's wait and see what happens after he leaves Liverpool. But, you know, I think it's fair to say now in 2.5 years at Liverpool, we've not seen enough of Darwin. Can anyone see a world where Isak is at Liverpool next season? Said VI Jokers. I can't see it. I want it, but I can't see it. I find, excuse me, I also find it very disrespectful to talk about a player like Isak, who isn't up for sale, at least openly up for sale, who's at a club that have just won a cup and are challenging to get into the Champions League again. I struggle, you know, and again, remind yourself who owns Newcastle. You know, it's not some Johnny-come-lately, it's the Saudi Public Investment Fund. So, they're just not going to want to lose him. And we're not a Chelsea or, you know, a club that will come in and just pay what it takes. You know, we know that we put a valuation on a player for wages and purchase price, and if that figure isn't what we want, then we walk away more often than not. Oh my God, the Premier League are an absolute piss take. The Premier League has further delayed the introduction of semi-automated offside technology, reports The Guardian. This is after a record 8-minute video assistant referee check in the FA Cup match between Bournemouth and Wolves. The earliest it could be introduced is the weekend of 5th, 6th of April. However, some clubs are questioning whether significant change should be brought in with 8 games remaining. They've dragged this out just so these incompetent clowns yet again in the PGMOL and their officials. I mean, it took 8 minutes, but why did it take 8 minutes? Was it the technology that took 8 minutes, or was it the people not trained enough using the technology that took 8 minutes? You know, so bit of a mad one that. Christian Knapp, welcome to Anfield Agenda FC, my friend. Clint, thank you, bro. Appreciate you. Steve says Isak might be Liverpool's newest sick note next season. Well, it's a really interesting point that you've raised, Steve, because for me, I don't really feel comfortable Liverpool spending upwards of £120 million on a forward who's not robust. You know, I don't. Like, there's no question about whether the lad's talent is enough. Of course it is. He's a really good player, and he knows where the goal is. But we've not really seen him have a season without a couple of injuries. And if you're going to invest that much in somebody and he's going to be the guy, well, he's got to be as near to bulletproof as possible. Especially if, you know, if Newcastle lose a few games, with all due respect to them, it's not as big an issue as if we lose a few games at the minute, because we're challenging for a league title. You can lose a few games and get into the Champions League places, but if your aim is to win a Premier League title, you can't be writing off some games. You can't be prioritising the cup final, let's say, and putting out a slightly weaker team to rest people up more if you have to go and try and win a Premier League title as well. So I struggle to see sense behind it all for those numbers. David said, who would you prefer between Alvarez or Isak? Alvarez for me. But on that, Atletico Madrid has, hang on 1 second. Where's this one? Yeah, Atletico Madrid sporting director Carlos Becerro has said this: the talk about Liverpool submitting an official offer to sign Julian Alvarez is incorrect. Alvarez is a key and important player in our project, and we have no intention of letting him go. So that's from Atletico Madrid sporting director. Now, whether that's fighting talk and they might let him go or not, we'll wait and see. But that's from the sporting director anyway. And on that, also, we got some news that Atleti look like they are looking at putting in an offer for Darwin Núñez, but the offer would be, at least according to this piece, 35 or 40 million euro, which is significantly less than the money that was being mentioned with Saudi in January. Like, that would be some hit to take. 35-40 million euro if we ended up selling Darwin. That's quite a substantial loss. And that came from Ben Jacobs, who said, Atletico Madrid are considering a 35 to 40 million euro bid for Darwin Núñez, who still has Saudi interest. The formula to a potential deal will be key if Atleti proceed. A summer Núñez exit is possible as Liverpool explore a new number 9. I think it's more than possible. You know, it's happening. Why do you choose Alvarez? Is it solely price? No, because I would imagine Julian Alvarez's price would be expensive as well. They paid about £80 million or 95 million euro when they signed him. I just think his flexibility also would be key, and his robustness. And so just for me, I just get a feeling in our team, I could see Julian Alvarez settling in to the system a little bit better. So that's roughly my thought process. Now, that isn't to say there isn't arguments to be made for a Hugo Ekitike, a Mateus Cunha, Benjamin Sesko, Liam DELAP again. So, like, on Liam DELAP, actually, where's this? There we go. So, according to Team Talk, Liverpool view Liam DELAP as a viable prospective addition to Arne Slot's attacking options and have made contact to establish his plans for the future with a £40 million with the £40 million Ipswich striker ticking all the boxes for Anfield Chiefs. For me, no problem if DELAP is part of an attacking rebuild, but if he's the guy, that's a big roll of the dice. You know, he clearly has something about him. There's a lot to like about Liam DELAP. He knows where the goal is. You can see the fight and work rate in him, but would he ever be prolific enough at the top level? Because it's a big jump to make from Ipswich battling for relegation to trying to win the Premier League and the European Cup. So for me, and I think from what we spoke about in the chat, if he was one of a couple of strikers, I think people would understand that a bit more. I feel a bit less freaked out by it. Ash said, sell Darwin to Saudi. He did a thing with Diaz and Sky where he laughed and joked about the Saudi money. I think he'll go there. Look, obviously we want, as fans, and I'm sure the club will want to get as much money as they can for Darwin Núñez. Same with Luis Diaz. It's going to be a difficult one though. Like, let's say Salah doesn't sign on. So then there could be a summer where we've lost Salah, Darwin, Diaz, and who knows what's going on with Jota. That leaves us with Gravenberch and Jayden Dance, maybe. Lewis Kumas, I don't know. So, again, a lot of uncertainty. So, we asked, should Chiesa play through the middle for the last 9 games? If you haven't voted, please do. It's still open. It's a landslide vote, by the way, so do vote if you haven't. Madeni said, Jonathan David on a free is also another FSG candidate for the 9 position. Yep, absolutely. Not one fibre of my body believes if he was 50 million quid, he'd be under consideration for Liverpool. But the fact that potentially he could be on a free if he doesn't agree a new deal with Lille, yeah, I would imagine that would be right up our owner's street, all right. What are your thoughts on an Aina replacement if Trent goes? Well, I would wonder if they agree an extension with him, Ben. So if Forest hang on and get a Champions League spot, you know, they'd probably try to extend Aina there on a deal. Unless there's already agreement that he's leaving, in which case, yeah, you could make an argument maybe to bring him in and him to compete with Bradley. He'd have a bit more... I think he's 28, is he? Aina, if my memory's right. Alvarez and Sesko, said Steve T. I mean, that would make me very happy. Very happy. Alvarez and Liam DELAP, I would take in a heartbeat as well. Like, Like, if we ended up with a refresh of an attack, let's say we did lose Mo, and I don't want to, but let's say we did, and we ended up with Mbuemo, DELAP, Alvarez, Gakpo, Dans, and AN other, I can live with that. I could see a world where that would be a very interesting forward line. And you could probably switch around a few in there as well. Maybe a Cunha instead of a Sesko, or... But again, we're dealing in hypotheticals at the minute, and it's so difficult because let's be honest, we don't really have much optimism around our owners and their spending. Have the fellas on the Blood Red podcast ever mentioned you? No, they're the Echo. Of course not. We're persona non grata for the Echo, mate. You know? Every other Liverpool channel has been mentioned on there and used on there, but we're persona non grata for the Echo. So no. If FSG don't spend decent in the summer window, then these clowns just need to do one and give it to somebody who cares. Yeah, look, I agree. But, you know, it's all very well and good me and you saying that, but, you know, will they piss off? Doubtful. Right, hear me out. Szoboszlai at right back, look at Valverde. I'm gonna pass on that one, thank you, David. Valverde is playing there out of necessity because Madrid don't have a fullback. I don't think the plan will be for him to do that. And also, we already need his legs in midfield for me at the minute. So I would... I'm not saying he couldn't do a job, but not for me personally. I'd pass on that one. I don't know if Cherky's still a Liverpool target or not. I don't know, mate. I've seen that you put it in a couple of times. I'm not sure. Steve Kirkman said, same media things every year at this time. Copy and paste from John's Little Pets, and we'll be down as per normal. Do you know what I always find very coincidental, Steve? That all of these guys somehow get stories at the same time then, and then all of a sudden that narrative gets formed like that. Funny that, isn't it? That all of a sudden there'd be nothing, and then one of them will say something and everybody will agree with it really quickly. It's almost like we're all being manipulated a little bit. Do you think Jota's days are numbered at Liverpool? Yes, and they should be. You know, it's time for brutal honesty after the last week or so. And in the brutal honest world, he has not lived up to his end of the bargain this season, Diogo Jota. He hasn't. He's had a really mixed campaign and ended it very badly. No goal in 4 years in the Champions League says a lot. And he's just looked way off it recently. So, honestly, the only forward that I feel is untouchable is Gakpo. And that's because he's the right age profile, he's Dutch. The rest of them, I think, for varying reasons, one of them being Salah's contract maybe not getting renewed for him, I think the rest of them, all of their careers are on the line at the minute. Not saying we all agree with it, but I would say that there's nobody that's untouchable in that front line apart from Cody Gakpo at the minute, and of course young Jadon Dan's future as well. Is Nico Williams linked to Liverpool whatsoever? Yes, but I don't know if there's any credibility to it. I always get the impression with him that he wants to stay in Spain. Arsenal have been mentioned as potential suitors for Nico Williams. Liverpool have been mentioned. He's a really good player. He's on a very high wage, if my memory is correct, at Athletic Club Bilbao because they don't really pay transfer fees. So when they don't really pay transfer fees, they invest the money that they do have into player salaries so they can keep the best Basque players around. And I think he's on about, I want to say 250 or 300,000 euro a week. Latif, 1 second, mate. Let me get your comment up. Said, I'd sell Jota because he's not worth 150 grand a week. I agree. If the right offer came in to sell Jota, I'd take the money. Right, so we've now had over 1,000 votes, and 92% of you guys that voted said that you think that we should be seeing Federico Chiesa play through the centre for the last 9 games. Let's see if Arna listens. Was there anybody from PSG who stood out to you as somebody we could grab? Well, there's lots of players that stood out, Dylan. Obviously, Doué looked good. Zaire Emery is somebody who's been linked with us. But they're not going to want to sell. And to be fair to the players who are at PSG now, would you want to leave there? Because this version of PSG looked like a far better destination than the Galacticos version, where they've got a young, hungry team who've bought into what Luis Enrique wants to do. We've seen that over 2 legs against them. Young players playing with no fear. A lot of them, French players coming through that system. So I really don't think you're going to see the likes of Barcola or anyone move. I feel like maybe we shit the bed and missed the boat on Kvaratskhelia. But I just don't see many people leaving that Paris team, and understandably, because for the first time ever, they really look like a team that could maybe win a Champions League. Muckrab said, do you agree with me that Slot has a Dutch bias? He rarely rests Dutch players and played the non-Dutch left winger out of position. When Jones starts, Maka is dropped, Ryan could use a rest. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Mate, I try not to go down those patterns of thinking. I just ask myself, is this player playing the right player for this game? Do they deserve to be in the team? And their nationality doesn't really matter to me. My bigger concern with Arne Slot would be, is he going to be incredibly stubborn? Or are we going to see some flexibility of the way that we play? Because, again, I made this point last night, and remember, a lot of the time here I'm thinking out loud, and I'm not trying to say stuff is a fact. I'm just giving you my take. For me as a fan, the trade-off from some of the gung-ho attacking play under Jurgen Klopp was supposed to be no fall-off, no injury crisis, no fatigue. And I don't feel like we've seen that now. So Jurgen used to run players into the ground over the course of a season, and then come March we'd have the old famous fall down. And Arne came in, and yes, the injuries have been far better, but that only makes me more frustrated that we're seeing the level of fatigue we're seeing now. Because we haven't had a catastrophic season with injuries. Of course, we've had some, as all clubs have. But we've always kept Virgil fit. Mo has been fit through the season. So the spine of our team has been there. And we still looked exhausted against Paris Saint-Germain and against Newcastle. And that has me concerned. Because we're not seeing the same intensity. Like, we've had so many discussions about being second half FC this season, starting games slowly. Even in the cup final, we were trying to figure out, is Arne trying to see if this Newcastle team's press dies off a bit? Are they going to wear down? We've been very cautious in the way that we structure our attacks and the way that we make sure that our players are in set position. So if we do turn over the ball, we're not being as open to counter-attack. And it hasn't been worth it. Not outside of the league, because we looked absolutely exhausted against PSG and Newcastle. So that's something I'm struggling to get my head around over the last week or two. Because if we had had a load of injuries and Arne was forced to have 15 players that he trusted, that's a different conversation. But we haven't. And he's chosen to have faith in the same 14 or 15 players and not rotate enough. And that has led to the exhaustion that we were supposed to have learned a lesson from. Would that be a fair statement? Let me know what you think about that. Because I'm not saying it's a matter of fact. I'm just telling you my lived experience as a Liverpool fan. My thought process is this. And it annoys me. Because it feels like whatever we do, we end up falling off a fucking cliff in March with regards to fatigue. Sam Lewis said, Craig, be honest, would you drop Salah next game? No, I wouldn't. But I would certainly be saying if I'm not seeing it after an hour, he's off, and I'd be making a change. Only because the next game's the derby is the reason I say no. And because who else do we have? You know, if you look at our forwards right now, I don't trust Darwin. I don't trust Jota. So we're already down 2. Chiesa, let's say he goes through the centre. So then you've got Diaz, Salah and Gakpo for 2 positions. Unless you want to throw Elliott into the mix, or maybe Jones in the left wing or something. But I think it's certainly fair to question, is Salah being played on reputation? And is he getting the full 90 on reputation? That, I think, is a fairer question. I think it comes down to him not trusting the bench, said David Massett. It definitely feels that way. It definitely feels like he doesn't have trust in that bench, you know. And you can see it because how many times have we not utilised the same 4 or 5 players on the bench? Just sat there, wasting a bench space and wages. Heck said, Klopp trusted a lot more players than Slot had. It's fair to say a lack of rotation has bit us on the ass. People underestimate how hard Salah has carried our attackers this season. Look, I don't know if people do underestimate that. You know, he has been a one-man show in attack this season. Now, yes, we've got a few more goals chipped in from midfield, but, you know, the numbers tell a story. And outside of Salah, maybe Gakpo, the rest of them just haven't delivered up top this season. Nowhere near enough. Paul Taylor and Shane222, welcome to Anfield Agenda FC, lads. Thank you for your support. When does Ramadan end? The end of this month, from my understanding, 31st of March. I asked a similar question the other day, so I believe it will have ended before our game on April 2nd against Everton. Maybe Salah plays because the other forwards hardly ever score. Absolutely, Steve. Absolutely. But I guess the point I think a few of us are making are Salah's looked tired in the last 3 games, more than we've seen him for the rest of the season. And he hasn't looked like he's likely to have that moment of creativity. So there's been some games where even I've felt like, surely you take him off here. We need the legs, if anything else. Like, nobody here is going to say Salah hasn't done his share this season. Of course, you know, without him, where would we be? So, you know, it's normal that somebody who plays that much is fatigued. But he plays that much because the other options aren't very appealing to the manager. What about Kluivert? So Kluivert's a kind of one that gives me match of the day fever vibes, Paul. He's been really good this season, but he's had a few clubs he's moved around in recent years and never really done what he's doing this season. You know, he's had moments where he's had little bits of magic. I don't know. It would feel like a risk, but there's something about the guy definitely. Like, he's great to watch as a player, and he certainly has a worldie or two in him. Will you be making any content with Lee? I don't know, is the honest answer. I don't know if you mean when I meet him over in Spain next week or this week, or whether it's in the future, but I plan on not doing any content this week when I'm away, to be honest. I need the break, and my family needs some FaceTime with me as well. Craig, can I introduce a possible idea to Salah's drop in form as somebody who fasts? I mean, it's not going to make any difference, Muckrab, because I'm not Arne Slot, so I'm sure the sports science team and nutritionists are far better placed to try and figure out the best way for an athlete that's fasting to be at the best that they can be, mate. I don't think you and I are going to figure it out between us. If you think back, Salah dropped off this time last year. He drops off. He seems to have a drop off in the latter part of a lot of seasons, to be fair, Mo. But I guess you look at that one of two ways, right? either way we look at it, Salah has outperformed everybody else around him in those numbers. So I don't think there's any question of if Salah's pulled his weight this season. He absolutely 100% has. Even if he doesn't score one more goal between now and the end of the season, if you looked at his numbers, you'd still say that's a good season. Which makes it all the more puzzling as to why he hasn't received a fitting contract offer yet. I want to ask you one... I want to ask you one question about the contracts. So let me just write this out. Okay. I'm just writing out the answers here, so bear with me. Okay. And last one. Right, so I've put in a question, but I want to read out the answers to you before I post it so people don't accidentally click on one. The question I'm asking is, do you believe the club actually want VVD and Salah to stay? And the options for answer I've given you is, no, they want them to go. So actually, I'm going to, 1 second, I'm going to add this. So no, they want. Right, so the options are, no, they want both to go. They only want VVD to stay. They only want Salah to stay. Or they want both to stay. So I think we've covered every base there. No, they don't want them. They want them to go. Yes, they want V to stay. Yes, they want Salah to stay, or they want both to stay. I want your honest opinion on what you think the club want. Not what you want, but what you think about the club. Do you believe the club actually want VVD and Salah to stay? No, they want both to go. They want VVD to stay. They want Mo to stay, or they want both to stay. They're the options. Mo is the most affordable world-class forward there is, said Phil Spicer. Yeah, and not only that, mate, who wants to be here and loves the club. Will I do a transfer deadline day live? Don't know, probably, mate. It's way too far to think about that at the minute. You know, we're talking about something in September at that point. So yeah, a long way away. I'm really interested to see what you guys vote on for this one. Now remember, you can vote even if you're not a member. So if you can, do vote away and give us as big a sample size as we can get on this one, because I think it's a question that fascinates me anyway as a Liverpool fan, because I don't think they want them to stay. Because I think if they really wanted them to stay, it'd have been done by now and they'd have found common ground. Craig, do you not think Salah wants to stay and break records? There's no doubt in my mind, Smokey, that Salah wants to stay. None. Zero. There's no doubt in my mind that fans want Salah to stay. You've seen that on the COP. You've seen it on social media. You know, Mo wants to stay. The fans want him to stay. The only question that we have as fans is, do the club really want him to stay? And that's the reason I've asked this question, because I've had my doubts about that. Because I struggle to feel that if you really wanted these lads to stay, you wouldn't allow them to go into January with 6 months to go and to openly be able to negotiate with other clubs. You do everything you could to stop that. and they haven't. And that makes me concerned. And that makes me think they're open to them leaving. Ghost Dog said, I think they want both to stay, but on reduced money. Dylan said, Craig, I'm from Australia, never been to Liverpool. Is it a nice place? Yes. Liverpool, well, look, like any major city, there's some parts that are nicer than other parts, but I think Liverpool's a great city. And even if you go out into the suburbs, there's some really nice areas where, you know, more affluent business people and footballers can live, where us mere mortals wouldn't be able to. But yeah, I love Liverpool. I think Liverpool's a cracking city. Lots of culture, lots of great restaurants, lots of history, tradition. Yeah, I love the city. So, look, I'm somebody who doesn't like huge cosmopolitan cities and would like the idea of living in London, Paris, New York. That would be a nightmare for me. There's too many people. So I'd always, if I was a player, I'd prefer the quieter, away from prying eyes, keep your privacy kind of club rather than bang smack in the centre of London. Like, there's no way I'd sign for a London club as a footballer. None. David said, just my opinion, I don't think the owners really care if they go, which is very annoying. But it's hard to see. It's hard to make an argument that they really want them to stay, isn't it? When here we are, mid-March, mid to late March, and still no even sniff of a breakthrough. So yeah, it's hard to make an argument for them wanting them to stay. We know what fans want. We've seen it on the cop, you know, the banner about giving Mo his dough. So the fans obviously want Mo to stay. What else we got? They don't want to pay the wages, said Tanya. What do you think of Birkenhead? I don't know if I've been out in Birkenhead much. I know my missus was out there for something the last time we were over, but look, I'm not going to claim I know all of Liverpool inside out, mate. I don't. But you know, when I go and stay in Liverpool, it's usually in and around the city, and it's beautiful. I love it. What's your thoughts still on the title race? We know what's at stake and the players have no excuses. Rest up and finish it off. I don't see it as being a title race, Ryan, at this point. I see it as being a matter of when and not if. You know, and as soon as we win those 5 games, sooner the better we win them. It's done and dusted. And also, I don't think for 1 second Arsenal are going to win their last 9 games. Not one fibre of my body thinks that they're good enough to do that. So there's no title race for me. It's just a matter of if we limp over the line or if we do it in style and create a bigger gap. But either way, you know, you look at the bookies, odds are about 1 to 50 on, meaning you'd have to spend £50 to win £1 if you wanted to bet on Liverpool to win the title. So I think it's a done deal. I just don't think there's any way back for anybody else. But I'm not saying there won't be a few nervy moments now over the next few weeks. The Everton game becomes a big game now, or bigger game than it already is. Which is worse, current Man United or Liverpool Hodgson era? Liverpool Hodgson era. Because United still have a chance of winning the Europa League this season. Look, that Hodgson era was disgusting. Hearing him calling a draw at Everton a good result for Liverpool, there was just too many things about that era. That going out to Northampton Town, I think, in the FA Cup, just too many things that I don't ever want to relive. Steve said, if Trent leaves, are Bradley and Kwanzaa good enough for us? Well, Kwanzaa won't be the right back moving forward. You know, he's covering there at the minute because we have no other option, really. Is he good enough? I think so, yeah. I've had moments of doubt this season, but he's come back towards more confident version of himself as the season's gone on. I think Gomez, we haven't really spoken much about Joe Gomez, by the way. I'd be very interested to see what happens with him this summer. Dylan said, what should we do with Elliott? He deserves more minutes. Do you see him as a 10? I see him far more likely to be a 10 than a wide player. So when I look at Elliott, if I'm trying to get the most out of him, I'd see him as, and he's not on this level yet, but I'd see him as a David Silva type player who can find pockets of space between the lines and link up play. And that's where I don't think he has the pace really to be a proper winger in the way that we think about wingers. So yeah, somebody in an advanced midfield position who can play between the lines, link up play, and find those little pockets of space to keep moves moving and to try and break open a defence. That's the way I would look at Elliott and his future. What if Slot wants Kwanzaa to be a right back? But he doesn't. I mean, it's kind of a moot point, mate. He doesn't want Kwanzaa to be a right back. So I was trying to think of a comparable player. Silva's a good share. Silva's been the one that I've always thought should be the barometer for what we want from Elliott. Foden to a less extent, but David Silva, I think if you're ever trying to describe that type of player, David Silva or Coutinho are probably the two that come to mind when you're thinking of maybe Kluivert this season as well for Bournemouth, is that player that can just pick up those little pockets of space and make things happen around the edge of a penalty area. I'm petrified for the summer. I can't lie. I'm absolutely petrified to see what happens in the summer. I never thought at the start of this season that we'd be concerned that Virgil might leave. I always felt the club might try and find a way to push Mo out because of the money involved. But I never, ever, ever for 1 second believed there's a chance our captain could win the Premier League and walk because they won't give him a new deal. Lance Peterson, welcome to Anfield Agenda FC, my friend. Thank you. Mutz, say what you see, said, hey Craig, how are you? I think one of the reasons why Salah falls off this time of year is because of Ramadan. Not easy to play with no food. I know. But Ibu does it. Dembele does it. Other players do it. I'm not saying it's easy, but he seems to be the only one that we ever make the excuse for, if you get me. Of course, look, it goes without saying that anybody that's fasting won't be able to play to their peak physical condition. No argument. But we never, ever, 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 ever have this conversation about any other players. It only comes up when Mo falls off a bit. And it's only ever about Mo. So that's the point I'm trying to make. I agree with you, but we've never had this argument about other players. And I'm not going to profess to know every Liverpool player's religious beliefs or their faith. I've got a clue. But I know we've had Muslim players over the years. Mane, as an example, I believe. I'm not sure Gini Wijnaldum's religious beliefs, but there have been others. But it's only ever Mo that we trot out this excuse for. And look, it's a valid excuse, again, but he's not the only one. Lloyd Major said, fed up of war chest spin every season. Do you really believe they deliver this year, Craig? No, I don't, mate. I want it to be right. I want there to be a war chest. I want to be proved wrong. But do I, in my heart of hearts, believe it? No, I don't. And I think most people would understand why I'd say I don't believe it. But I will be a very happy fan if it happens. But what we cannot allow is to let this window go past us. We cannot allow the same conversations that we've had last summer and in winter of, It's only open. Give it time. The window hasn't closed yet. That's how you allow a window to get to the last 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden prices have gone up even more and the excuses trot out about there being no value. We need to get this. If there's a plan in place, they best execute it quickly and show what the fuck they've been working on over the last 9 months. Because nothing else has been happening. So, no, I don't believe it. But let's wait and see. And like I mentioned at the start of the stream, we're going to keep the net spendometer running throughout the summer. So every time Liverpool make a sale and buy a player, we'll adjust the figures and we'll see what the net spend is for FSG at the end of the summer window. There aren't many attacking players in the world that are currently observing Ramadan who are still scoring extremely well. And what about the defenders and the midfielders and the goalkeepers? You know? Again, I'm not sure if Dembele is observing Ramadan, but if he is, certainly doesn't seem to be falling off. Like I said, the only person we ever see this brought out was an excuse to talk away the dip is Mo. And that's unfair for me if you're only saying one player has the excuse. But again, like I've said numerous times, it is a valid excuse. Like, I couldn't do it. You know? And it is certainly... But you also know this when you sign these guys, right? You know. You know, if you've got a player of a certain religious belief and you know that they need time to pray or they need to fast, or... You know that when you sign them. So this should be part of your club's plans. You know, you should allow for this time of the season where maybe you can't lean on Mo as heavily. And that's why even more so you can argue, well, where's the backup to him? To be able to maybe say, okay, we're not going to see the best version of Mo now. Let's rest him up and bring somebody else on. But, you know, we don't. Carl said the answer is they want both to stay, but on their terms. So yeah, for peanuts, Carl. Right, we'll keep the poll going. We've got about 10 minutes left. And remember, this is our last live stream until the 27th. We'll be back streaming again on the 27th of March. So do vote away on this one. And again, thank you all for your support and your understanding as well. We are, dire need of a break. So we're taking a week away. I think Connor has a few things ready for the Clips channel. And if you don't know, we have a Clips channel, by the way. Do search Anfield Agenda Clips. It's heading towards, I think, 44,000 subscribers or something now. Matt Denny said, yes, Dembele is a practicing Muslim. Well, it's fair to say, you know, he's doing all right at the minute on the pitch. Can you take me with you? No, I'm going to have to say no on that one, Jay Muse. I've got myself, the wife, our daughter, her boyfriend, and our son. Full troop. Any plans for the break? I'm going on holidays tomorrow, Dylan. Over to Spain for the week. And then we're going meeting up with Lee Gunner for a couple of days. We're going to go watch Elche play over in the Segunda Division in Spain. And other than that, I just plan on sleeping a lot for the next week. Ash said, if I'm not mistaken, Slot will create history and become the first Dutch manager to win the Premier League. I don't think Gus Hiddink won it. I can't remember if Gus Hiddink won it or not. Louis van Gaal didn't win it with United anyway. I don't know, did Gus Hiddink win it? What did he win it? I can't remember what Gus Hiddink won with Chelsea or not. Funny how it's gone from Isak to Alvarez to DELAP. DELAP will be cheap because of relegation. Again, I wouldn't say 100% JG94 that it's definitely gone that way, but his name is certainly in the mix. Most of us feel like he'd be a fine secondary option if there was a headline player like an Alvarez or an Isak. And tanning. I don't even care if I see much Sun Hoarder. Honestly, this is just one where I need to just switch off for a week, watch lots of shit telly, eat some crappy food, and just switch off mentally, and just try to get some rest. Thank you, Nollipop. Appreciate you, my man. I'm sick of whinging opposition fans trying to discredit us. We've had a great season, outclassed most opposition teams. Arsenal fans are awful. Yeah, but who cares? This is the way I look at it, Dylan. Like, if they, just ask yourself this, if they had done what we're doing this season with the exact same points tally, do you think that they'd be talking the same? No, they're jealous, and that's it. They're jealous, they're bitter, they're pissed off that their club shit the bed this season. They thought that they were going to be the anointed ones that were going to stroll to a Premier League title if Man City fell off, and unfortunately, they haven't got the wherewithal to do it this season. So I really don't care. Let them be bitter. Let them try to discredit. They tried to discredit our first league title, called it a COVID only title. Now they're trying to call this a PGMOL title. I call it the fuck you for the second time Arsenal title. Phil, appreciate you, man. Thank you. Pina colada is a bit too exotic for me, bro. I'll have a vodka and cranberry, maybe. But thank you, Phil. They've really shown themselves up, haven't they, Arsenal fans, this season? A lot of them. Not all of them, of course. A lot of them to be bitter. You know, I've really enjoyed the interaction between Liverpool and Newcastle fans since the final. So many Newcastle fans commenting on how gracious Liverpool fans have been in the defeat because we seen the better team won and we didn't make excuses for it. Ask yourselves this: if Arsenal had lost when we lost, all you'd be hearing about now is the potential handball, because that's all they talk about, and they tried to discredit the ref, and they tried to say the only reason they lost was because the handball wasn't given against Trippier. But Liverpool fans have just said, you know what, better team won on the day, no arguments, disappointment is off our own performance, and I've really enjoyed seeing my fellow fans be good sports. So fair play to the Liverpool fans who've been just admitting we were beaten on the team on the day by a better side. Nollypop said, give me a proper seafood paella and pina colada. I don't like seafood, mate. Not my cup of tea. Right, let's check in on this poll before we finish up. So we've had 800 votes, and we said, do you believe the club actually want VVD and Salah to stay? And the highest answered one with 42% was no, they want both to go. So 41 or 42% of people that voted in that poll think that the club want both Salah and Virgil to go. There was a joint second place answer. They only want VVD to stay and they want both to stay. Both had 28%, and they only want Salah to stay, just 1%. So there you go, and appreciate all of your input and feedback. Look, ladies and gents, I'm going to say goodbye to you guys, and I will see you in 9 days or so. You may see a little hello or something from me on social between now and then, but ultimately I'll be back live streaming on the 27th. And again, thank you for your support, and we'll talk to you soon. Much love.